Welcome to Algebra 2. This is your first YouTube or Weebly video or wherever the video is being held. You should have received last class period a uh, piece of paper that had a bunch of words to review from Chapter 1. Now, Chapter 1 doesn't have really, especially as words to review, because these are things that you would have seen in Algebra 1 and worked on in geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and help you uh, fill out these words. So let's talk about what opposite is. So like I said, let's talk about what opposite is. Opposite, when we're dealing with numbers, we're dealing with things that have the opposite sign. So opposite of 3 and -3, these are opposites. X and -x are also opposite. These are examples. If you wanted a true definition, you could say opposites are equal distance in opposite directions from a center point. So 3, here's 0, here's your center point. You'd say that -3 is the same distance away as 3, but in opposite directions. So it's also a directional thing. Reciprocal. If you have 3, and reciprocal means you flip a fraction, a flip frac. 3 and 1/3. Those are reciprocals. X and 1/x are reciprocals. If you had 2/3, the reciprocal of this, flipping the fraction, would be 3/2. These are all reciprocals of one another. A power. A power you can also think of as an exponent, because what you have is you have 6 to the power of 3. This is a power equation, and 3 is the exponent, or the power. 6 to the power of 3. So you would say 6 to the power of 3. That's how you would say that. That is a power. A variable, an example of it would be x. It's basically considered a placeholder, and really variables can equal any type of number that you want. And don't always think that it's just x. A variable could be y, a variable could be a happy face, a variable could be anything you want. It's any symbol that represents a number. Okay. So x, y, smiley face, check mark, could be whatever you want. All right, a term. Terms are pieces of equations that are separated by addition or subtraction. It's plain and simple. So if you saw an equation 2x plus 3y minus 4, there are 3 terms here. 2x is a term, 3y is a term, minus 4 is a term. Coefficients are numbers in front of variables. So 2x plus 3y minus 4. 2 is a coefficient. 3 is a coefficient. 4 is actually considered a constant. Okay, so this would be a constant because there is no variable here. Keep going here. Identity. Identity are when one side equals the other. There's additive identities, there's multiplicative identities. Basically, if you take 3x minus 2, the identity to that would be 3x minus 6. They're the same thing. You could also say that an identity is when 2 equals 2 or 0 equals 0. Anytime the left side equals the right side. An equation has an equal sign. Anytime you have mathematical thing written there, if it has an equal sign, it's an equation. 2x minus 4, not an equation. Once you put that equal to sign in there, now it is an equation. A linear equation, you could give an example of it. I have one up there. 2x minus 4 actually is or equals 3 is a linear equation. Equation because it's an equal to, but linear because, like I said, linear because the variable has no exponent. It's actually considered an exponent of 1. And the variable is not in the denominator. And is not in the denominator. Okay. A solution, you can just say is the answer. Equivalent equations are similar equations that end up being the same. An example of that would be x minus a equals b. You could write an equivalent equation of this, x equals b plus a. All you did was added a to both sides. You could also make it this, x plus 2 equals b plus a plus 2. An equivalent equation is when you start with one equation. As long as you do the same thing to the right as you do the left, you end up with an equivalent equation. So I could multiply by 2, I could raise it to a power, I could divide by any random variable. As long as I do it to the left, then you're okay. Formula. An example of a distance formula is distance equals the rate times the time. It's an equation for a given application. And it's good for all similar applications. The circumference equals pi times diameter. That is a formula for circumference. Solve for a variable. Solving for a variable, please remember, means that you basically isolate a given variable. A verbal model is where you write an equation, and we'll just say that it's in word form. So instead of d equals rt, it's distance equals the rate times the time. All right, the last three. A linear inequality. A linear inequality is just like an equation. You could actually say that the variable has no exponent, but remember, we mean it has a 1. Linear no exponent. And not in the denominator. Okay, so it's in the form mx plus b, 2x minus 4 equals 3 is a linear equation. So to make that an inequality, you have to use less than or equal to, greater than, or greater than or equal to. A compound inequality is the same thing, except now you have multiple inequalities. That means like x is greater than 3, but x is less than negative 4, or negative 9. It looks like a 9. So equivalent inequalities is very similar to equivalent equations. Basically, what you do to one side, you do to the other. So if you have x plus 3 greater than b, if I subtract 3, or let's add an a to it, x plus 3 plus a is greater than b plus a. That's all that is. That's all that how that works out. Now, I'm going to add a little note over here in a second. But an absolute value, the definition is distance from 0. Therefore, the absolute value of negative 3 is the same distance from 0 as the absolute value of 3. Basically, distance from 0. Distance, we're always going to say is positive. Extraneous solutions are solutions that do not work. So sometimes you're going to get an equation. You're going to be given an equation. You're going to be asked to solve it. You're going to come up with 2 answers. Now, sometimes there are 2 answers. But sometimes that second answer you get or that first answer you get is extraneous. All right, and one thing I'll say in the lesson later on is that with equivalent inequalities, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality. That means if you multiply a greater than will become a less than, and we'll talk about that a lot. So, all right, so this is your first video. It's 13 minutes long. It's all of the vocabulary words or words to review that you'll need to know for the whole chapter 1.